prune those as close as possible to the vines. And if there's a little bit of wire that's hanging out,
Exactly.
you're not going to see it.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's see.
Oh, we're glad you're back.
I'm glad to be back and continue our ag tourism discussions.
Yeah.
That's
Fred's had it up to here with the ag tourism discussion.
Well, we're like 3 years in at this point, so I think we should all should be ready to conclude it and hand it back to the county.
Yeah, if we have to wrestle a vote to the ground, you mean?
Wrestle ourselves.
Yeah, whatever.
Let's see, this 8238135, is that you, Peter?
Yes, it is. My landline failed.
Okay, no problem. I'm just renaming our folks. Natalie's got her hand up. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay.
I just don't know if, can you see me and hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I just wasn't sure.
Okay, do we have enough folks for a quorum? We do. Summer's nodding her head.
Yes, we do.
Then I will call this meeting of the Agricultural Advisory Committee to order.
I realize I should probably ask this right before we started, but do you want me to continue doing the minutes for this meeting, Summer, or was something else determined last month?
That would be great if you are up for it, Lauren.
Well, I owe you. I still owe you
I-
half of them from like last year, so I should, as a sorry, also do these. But okay, let me get my notes up then real quick.
Yeah, and we were hoping to maybe appoint, oh, there it is. Item 6, great. Nomination for secretary.
Okay. 2022. Notes. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't totally ready for the minutes. Just gonna delay you guys a minute while I get the notes up real quick. And this is January 9th. Okay, and let's say you called the meeting to order at 7:06. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, we do a roll call.
Yes. Do I have? Of course, I used to always use a paper packet, so I also don't have that right in front of me.
I can do that.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'll record who's not here then.
Judith Humberg,
Here.
James Oku,
Here.
Natalie Sayre,
Here,
Jonathan Winslow. I don't think I saw him here. Peter Markey,
Here.
Ryan Casey, not here. Fred Crowder,
Here.
Lauren Silberman,
Here.
and I, John Bars, am present also. Natural Conservation, Resource Conservation staff, Jim Howard. Couldn't make it tonight, seems. San Mateo County Agricultural Commissioner, Corin Whittle.
Here.
Farm Bureau Executive Director, Jess Brown. Let's see if Jess is here. It's not. San Mateo County Planning Staff, Summer Burlinson.
Here.
And Frank is usually not here. So I think that's it.
Um, Okay, we have 2 absent voting members, which means we have a quorum.
And then item number 3 is still regarding COVID-19.
Okay, then I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution that as a result of the continuing COVID-19 pandemic state of emergency, meeting in person would present imminent risks to the health and safety of attendees.
Second,
Seconded by Judy. Okay, should we do another roll call vote?
Yes. Got the list of names, so I can do that. So Judy?
Yep.
Yes.
all right.
James?
Yes.
Natalie?
Yes,
I, John, vote yes. Peter?
yes,
Fred?
Oh, you're muted, Fred. I think you're
Affirmative.
saying yes.
And then Lauren?
Yes, unanimous, yes, motion passes.
I'm pressing the space. I'm pressing the space.
Ah,
bar.
okay, yes.
It's not working. Corin, you'll have to direct me in some alternative ways to unmute myself besides hitting the mute unmute button.
You're pressing the space bar and it didn't work? Huh. Oh, see, it's working now.
I'm pressing the space bar and it's working now.
It's just keeping us on our toes.
All right, item number 4 is oral communications to allow the public to address the committee on any matter not on the agenda. If your subject is not on the agenda, the chair will recognize you at this time. Do we have any members of the public with a hand raised?
No one currently. We did chat a little bit earlier about the storm and stuff, but any public comments on the recent storms and large amounts of water?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, cool. The latest that I know about the water is that the Pilarcitos Reservoir is working with the city and Sewer Authority Midcoast on releases in a controlled fashion in between the storms. And the other big one I would say is that Moonridge flooded. And it turns out that that hill that's right up against Moonridge, there's no drainage system. There's just a little ditch. And Joaquin and Ray Mueller, they came out. Ray came out like on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And Joaquin was there as well. Then they did another tour, I think, on the Monday. So they're on top of it. But the storms that are coming in, there's going to be water coming in until the 20th. So it's going to be, I'm on the SAM meeting on with my other ear. And the SAM plant nearly got taken out by Pilarcitos Creek. Very close call.
who is speaking? Can the speaker be identified, please?
Oh, sorry, Michelle Dragony, Coastside Buzz.
Thank you. From what group?
Coastside
Our-
Buzz. Do you know the
Coastside Buzz.
website and Instagram?
sorry.
And
two people talked at the same time, so I didn't get it. What was it called? Coastside Buzz? Thank you. I saw your memo that you wrote that was shared. I just want to make sure I got it correctly. Thank you.
No problem. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a plug, Michelle. It's one of my favorite resources for local news on the coast. Usually Michelle has the news first, even before the Half Moon Bay Review. So I love following them on Instagram and checking their website regularly.
I have a weekly buzz mail that comes out every Thursday, which gives you just a nice rundown of what's happened on the coast during that last week. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, Natalie, go ahead.
So sorry, I can't find where to raise my hand. Thank you. Is there a place that we can find when the dam releases are going to be done? The schedule of that? Did you hear me okay? It's to Michelle, I guess.
Yeah, question about scheduling of the dam releases. I wonder if that might not be publicly known.
Is there a place that where, Michelle, where you find your information? Is there a place where others can find that too?
Yeah,
Okay,
if you sign up, the city of Half Moon Bay, they actually put the email out. I think it was like on the 4th. And actually it would have been earlier than that, because actually it was on the 1st. That's right. The flood happened on the 31st, and on the 1st, that's when Mueller came in, and John Dottie, who's Public Works assistant as city manager, and Matthew. Basically they were there for 48 hours, trying to just save things. They had a big, huge flood at Oak Avenue, had to evacuate a bunch of people. There were like 92 families at Moonridge that had to get evacuated.
Is there a place that the public can find the information when the dam releases will be occurring?
That's a good question. Right now, my only knowledge comes from the city of Half Moon Bay e-news. I can ask, the city manager and stuff like that, but I think they're trying to work that out. And I think it's kind of a day-to-day sort of basis.
Okay, are they going to let the residents nearby know?
Well, yes and no. They did. I don't think the city realized that. First of all, the city was on vacation. I don't think they realized how bad it was going to get at Oak Avenue. There is a homeless encampment that is by Tom and Pete's. It's on private property, and the city can't do anything about it. And then there's another encampment underneath the Caltrans bridge, and all of their camp just ended up in the creek, and that clogged a lot of stuff up. So there's just so many unintended consequences, and it's just Mother Nature, and they're doing their best to figure it out.
Yeah,
but
it sounds like the city of Half Moon Bay has that information, so perhaps they're the best folks to follow up with.
Yeah, and subscribe to their e-news, and that's about the best you can do. But since you're on the AAC, if you have a question, you're welcome to talk to the city manager.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Then it looks like Carrie has her hand up.
Good evening. Sorry, I'm suffering from a cold, so my voice is croakier than usual, but the TED Ad Hoc Center is open for people that need a emergency refuge. So the city has been proactive, even though I've been under the weather, haven't been able to monitor all these crazy events, but that's always a good resource. The city has been very proactive with trying to find some alternatives for folks. But what happened at the sand plant is very serious, because we've had then some releases of effluent that that will also impact our water quality in the ocean and all that. So it just really heightens the concerns about how we can, how we're going to have to manage these bigger storm water events, and what the repercussions are. And of course, in Pescadero, and then along, that there's been flooding in there, with these big floods. So downpour. So, heart goes out to everyone, and just be safe out there. And, get on as many alerts. The county has a new alert system. I have, so you should just look into signing up for that also. And just so everybody can be advised of what the conditions are out there, and try not to be, put yourself in danger if you don't have to. Thank you.
Definitely. This is not necessarily something that we can resolve, but we had the issue here in Montero that we had no cell service during the storm. Some of the cell towers, I think, were compromised. And then without power, we also had no internet. So while many people here were signed up for the county emergency alerts, we had no way to receive them unless we physically drove to somewhere we could get cell service or internet. So Summer, I'm not sure if that's something you can filter back to the county in some way. I know no one here necessarily has the power to resolve that, but yeah, Carrie has her hand up again.
Well, and that was part of what you can do at the Ted Adcock Center, was to use the internet to recharge your thing. So not, even
Nice.
if your house was all right, it gives you a respite from, feeling so disconnected from the world. And so that's another service that they're offering. And I am a CERT member, and we're working on doing the same thing in our little clubhouse for our residents, so that if that there's some way of getting the information that you need when this perfect storm happens, that's not so perfect as far as impacting folks.
Great point. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Lauren, for that information. So I can certainly, separate from AAC, but I can certainly pass that along as the county continues discussing the storm events and emergency services and so forth. Thanks.
Thank you.
That would be good, Summer. I was just going to comment because, we don't have any power or internet or cell reception up at the ranch, up in the canyon. And I know my neighbors don't either. And the county relies on the internet to get information to the farm community.
Mm-hmm.
And if those cell towers go down, phones go down, there's no electricity, then we're not getting any information. If the roads are blocked, if there's flooding, we're not going to be able to come down to the Ted Adcock Center or other emergency centers to be able to connect. So there is quite a disconnect between the farm community in some of the more remote canyons and access to emergency notifications.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I wonder if looking into backup sources of power, I don't know if that solves the internet problem. It solves it for me since I switched over to what's it called, the Skylink or whatever. So
Starlink?
as long
Starlink.
yeah. But not that everyone has to have their own backup generator and Starlink, but if there were ways for the county to make that available, neighborhood by neighborhood, so that then you wouldn't be cut off from communication, ways to work around. And I guess it's communication. This is also, we can kind of blend this with oral communications for committee members that are not on the agenda. We've already had some committee members chime in, so questions and updates.
I have something, that's okay, John, for committee.
Yeah,
members.
please.
So, Andrea, the ombudsman for the county, I don't know if you guys got the email, but she sent an email about, is she here tonight? Andrea, is she here tonight at the meeting?
Audrey, I don't see her in the mix today.
Okay. So she sent an email asking if anybody had been impacted by the storm, if any of the farms have, and to please let her know. So number one, I want to pass that along for any farms that didn't get that email. And number two, I was curious along those lines, if anybody happens to know, is there any disaster grants for if anybody knows, for farm damage. We don't, in the old days, you know, they used to do that, but when the crops were ruined, but I don't think there's anything now, but does anyone know along these lines?
Yeah, I can cover that, Natalie.
Thanks.
So first off, I mean, you guys have all been talking about how you don't have service, but the county has set up a website to get information such as sandbag locations, emergency shelter, and it has links to cities. So if you are in a city, it'll like put you through to your city resources. And if you're an unincorporated county, it gives you resources as well for shelter. And then also there's health and safety guidelines in there. If you're re-entering a flooded house or area, there's some guidelines to help you deal with how to clean it up and any concerns you should have with floodwaters and that type of thing as well. But yeah, unfortunately it is online. If you do have a non-emergency, you should call 211. There's a non-emergency issue that you have at the county, call 211. Of course, if it's a life-threatening emergency, you know, please call 911 if you have service, I guess. And then as far as damage goes, typically the ag department we're taking disaster damage, but it's kind of after the fact. So if you have like an immediate emergency right now, you know, you need to call one of the numbers to get help with that. But after the fact, we've already started calling to try to get assessment on who has damage to their crops. And that would also include any infrastructure that may be damaged, agricultural infrastructure that is. And so this will hopefully lead to prioritizing money towards helping agriculture, hopefully in our area as well, but definitely state money. Right now, we're kind of in the emergency portion of this disaster, trying to deal with, you know, the immediate issues. But as far as grants go, I don't know of any yet, but there is bound to be something as we move into the future. But we do need to collect information on how much damage there is. And typically we want to put a monetary value on that. So if you guys, my staff will be calling and asking this information. So I know it's hard to really assess, especially at this point. We don't know how much more damage is going to occur, but if you could give us something, we will definitely report that. And then as if there's grants and help coming out of that, we'll definitely get that information to you as it comes up. But it's kind of, we're in the assessing the damage at this point.
Yeah,
and
we're
so,
still in it.
Unfortunately, we're still in it. Yep. And so we kind of have to a little bit wait and see, but if there's definitely emergency, please call one of the numbers to get help with that. Like if there's a life-threatening emergency happening, 911. If there's other reporting of damage that you need help from local assistance, then you call 211.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
And it looks like James has his hand up.
Yeah,
What about damages from lack of power? I mean, Pescadero has been without power for a week now, and I know I'm going to have damages because our coolers are down and we can't operate our greenhouses and all that kind of stuff.
So yeah, that's definitely part of it as well. That should be considered in any damage reporting. You know, unfortunately though, there's, you know, the crop insurance, and a lot of times that's what, you know, we get first in disasters is the insurance, which are loans. So I don't know how much money will be available that, you know, is free money, so to speak, to help. So we have to wait and see what's available. But yeah, definitely consider any like storage, cooling, can't run the lights, so you can't grow. Like, I mean, that's all that's damage that needs to be put in there and reported. And even like infrastructure too. So if you have farm roads that are going out or reservoirs that are damaged, stuff like that, like we'll take that information as well. But I definitely, it wouldn't hurt to get into contact with Farm Service Agency down. Vivian Sofa is the contact there, and Salinas. I'm sure some of you might be familiar with her. It's still the same person.
Well, looks like Summer and Fred have their hands up.
Go ahead, Fred.
Okay. Fred?
Corin, once we get through this emergency, are you going to be sending out some sort of a request for damage?
Yeah, well, we already started calling some people just to see if there's immediate needs, such as like if there's a livestock evacuations, please, call us right away, so we can try to get you help to evacuate your livestock. So, those kind of immediate things we were trying to figure out. But as time goes on and we're still getting rain and damage is still occurring, we're going to be calling everybody to get those assessments.
Thank you.
Summer, did you want to go ahead?
Mine was a different topic.
Okay.
So I don't know if there are others to speak on this one. Maybe not.
Looks like we're good.
Okay. I just wanted to share or just to provide their advance notification that the Ag Advisory meetings, all of the county boards and commission meetings will return to in-person meetings as of March 1st, 2023. So I just wanted to give everybody fair warning on that. We are looking into resuming the meetings for Ag Advisory Committee at the same location they were held prior to COVID, which was the Ted Adcock building in Half Moon Bay. So just wanted to share that with you, and we'll have more information. Hopefully at the next meeting, we'll have everything figured out in advance for the March Ag Advisory meeting. Thanks.
Well, exactly 3 years later, we'll be back to in person, it looks like. Question on that front, and you may not have the answer for this yet. Does that mean that we will go back to not being staffed by the county? Since, would you be driving out for the meetings, or is there a way that we could perhaps do a hybrid where you're able to still attend through Zoom in some way? Or are we looking at unstaffed meetings again, moving forward?
Have you guys had unstaffed meetings in the past before COVID? I think the intention is that, I don't know if it will be me moving forward, but that there will be a planning staff member that would be attending the meetings in person when they're held. And so we're trying to figure that out as well.
Great. Just for a little bit of history, and I don't want to feed into it too much because I want to tell you, yes, they were always staffed, and please always staff them again in the future. But yeah, it was a long period of not being staffed, and it really negatively contributed to our ability to manage the meeting in an effective and consistent way that helped us, meet the purview of our committee. So we, of course, any way we can continue to have these meetings staffed will just increase our ability to do the work that the county's asking us to do.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that. And also with regards to your question about hybrid meetings, So there are a number, my understanding is there are a number of requirements that need to be met, which are pretty extensive in order to hold hybrid meetings. So I think including, I think a majority of the members still need to be still need to attend in person. And for anybody that will be on the committee that is remote or calling in remotely, there are some, I think, requirements for those people as well, on how they need to advertise or notice their location for calling in. So I think it
Oh, right.
it
Then
becomes very tricky in terms of trying to meet all of those requirements for hybrid. But we are taking a look, we do have that criteria, and we're taking a look at kind of all options that might be available. So
right. You're reminding me now that
within reason.
it would be something where like each of our houses would be technically a location for a public meeting that would need to be noticed 10 days before.
It has to be
Right,
posted, and so
Are you serious? Good grief.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh,
it's
Lordy.
my understanding, Summer, that due to the administrative burden, due to these requirements, that they're just not gonna do the hybrid. We're just gonna go back to in person.
okay,
as
that
it
makes
was
sense, because
pre-COVID.
some of those requirements are just probably not reasonable or feasible. So thanks.
Thanks for clarifying.
I just wanted to comment on Lauren's comments about staffing the meetings. Is for my last few months as commissioner, the meetings were not staffed. Actually, probably the last year or so. And it really made it difficult to conduct meetings. There was always questions about county policy. And those, we wouldn't get any kind of response from, which really made it difficult to have discussion. And so having somebody there is really
Critical to our ability to function.
Yes, yeah.
Great.
I
I
agree with
appreciate
Fred.
that feedback. And as I mentioned, our all intention is that we would have somebody available to attend. So thanks.
Great. Thanks, Summer.
Okay, are we ready to move on from this topic? Committee members sharing news that is not on the agenda.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay. Item 6, committee nomination for AAC secretary. Do we have anyone who wants to nominate themselves?
I'll just throw out there that I don't think not that fair isn't the right word, but lifestyle wise, it's probably unlikely that any of our farmer members on the committee have the bandwidth to be able to serve in that role. So I would ask anyone that's in a non-farmer role on the committee to consider if they can help the committee by stepping into the secretary role. So those in public positions or other non-farmer positions, we would love your help.
I'd like to nominate.
Go ahead, Natalie.
Oh, sorry. Well, I don't know if you're interested, but James O'Ku, I know you're a farmer, but I don't know your ability to, have dam service. I know not right now while Pescadero is flooded, but this might be something that you might want to dive into.
I definitely don't have the bandwidth at the moment.
Okay. I just thought I'd check in. It just thought it'd be neat to have somebody new, on board a little bit with the officer position. But somebody else maybe. Thanks.
And the other thing I'll say, if it sweetens the deal for anyone, is I will happily sit down and share all my resources, my templates for the minutes and the minute notes and kind of the backlog of different stuff and correspondence, and take some time to make sure whoever does step into the role feels armed with all the tools available.
Yeah, and I guess this is Judy. I'm kind of one of the obvious ones, but unfortunately, I'm going to be moving within the next year. And so am probably imminently going to need to resign. So unfortunately, I won't be with the committee a lot longer.
Sorry to hear that. We're both moving out of the area, it sounds like. Then.
Yeah. Healdsburg for me.
Ooh, nice. Love
Yeah.
it up there. Another nice ag community too.
Yes, exactly. I'm looking forward to that part of it, but I will definitely miss this group and just knowing, being able to support what you're all doing out there. So.
Thanks. So who is the other non-farmer member in the meeting today? Drum roll, Fred. How do you feel about the position or helping the committee in that way?
I could do it. I don't know for how long. I have some aging parents in Santa Barbara, and I may be having to move down there with them. And I'm hoping that's going to be later rather than sooner. But it's looming large in my future. So yeah, I can take on doing the minutes, but I might not be able to continue doing so.
I'm sorry to hear that, and would be sorry to lose you from the county as well in the short term. I believe this position would track with the chair and vice chair, which are renewed every November. So I think the current secretary position, correct me if I'm wrong here, Summer, would be for the remaining amount, which would take us through November. So I'm not sure if that helps with any sort of commitment or decision making. Did I get that right, Summer?
I believe so.
But if you're willing to do it in the short term, I think that means that it's lucky you that as long as we have you here, you're able to. I think you're the only one willing at this point, Fred. So would certainly appreciate your help in stepping into that role.
Seems like I've been taking minutes pretty much everywhere I go and whatever I do.
You and me both. You and me both.
One of these days I'm gonna stop, but I'm going to do it now.
And then I don't know if you're willing to kind of take over the next, and like we can do the next few together as well. I know we have some newer members, to speak to what Natalie was saying, who aren't in farmer roles, who might be able to help step into that later in the year. I don't know if Jonathan, I know he's an ag position, but has admin experience, I think, too. So maybe we can recruit him.
Yeah, we certainly can recruit him while he's not here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, do we vote on Fred's nomination, or do
Good question. I don't know if this is a voting position, but Corin had her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Corin.
I was just gonna bring up something I think we forgot to talk about, which was the vacancies, but I'll do after you're done with the voting or how this
Nomination,
works for
yeah.
the secretary.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I would like to nominate Fred as the secretary for the AAC.
Yeah, and I don't believe that needs a vote. If everybody,
Okay.
unless there's, it could just open up to the floor if there's any objections or questions or concerns.
Okay.
Thank you, Fred.
Yeah, I was going to say my only comment is gratitude. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Fred. And Corin, you had some comments on the vacancies to the committee?
Yeah, I don't know, Summer, did we talk about that already, about the vacancies?
No, I was going to address it in the director's report.
Okay,
Either
maybe
way.
you would just, yeah, address it at that point, that's fine. Just
Okay,
that
then-
they got extended.
Yeah.
We didn't have any, what was it? Oh, ag business members apply. So if anybody knows, anybody out there that, would fit that role, spread the word, please.
Would Audria count in that role, even though she's currently serving as ag ombudsman, but it's kind of like
Well, she
an
did, I think
administrative
she
support
has,
position in a way.
I think she has moved on technically from the ag ombudsman position as well at RCD. And
Yeah,
she's
Ah,
changed,
okay.
she's still with RCD, but she's changed
Mhm.
roles. So, yeah, I don't know, possibly. I could certainly check into it and reach out to her and see if she's.
Yeah, I know.
has
Just
interest.
from a brainstorming perspective, I know the ag business is the one I'm sitting in, and it was sitting empty for many years before I applied for it.
Oh,
And
okay.
I think previously when I chatted, I think it was like Rob, who was still a planner at that point. He said that the last person who held that position was affiliated with a bank that does a lot of farm loans, and previously was held by folks from that world. So I don't know if
Okay.
we want to recruit to that area, but it's always seemed weird that the ag ombudsman does not have a formal position on our committee, because they're always participating and helpful and useful in some way. So I don't know if in thinking about this role moving forward, maybe it can be hybridized with that ag ombudsman in some way, but just thinking out loud.
Yeah, I would agree. I
That's yeah.
kind of recognize the same thing coming in.
Yeah, that's some good feedback. Yeah, I'll check into that and see how that might be modified, and I'll check in with Audria as well. And I don't know if there's if they have other staff that's kind of rotated into her ag ombudsman position now, and if we want to tailor it to whoever that is in that position at RCD, or how we might want to do that. But yeah, as Corin had mentioned, I'll just mention now, the extension for applications is to Friday, February 3rd at 5 p.m. And a copy of the advertisement or the recruitment flyer was included in the as an attachment to the director's report as well. So please pass around.
Corin, is the ag ombudsman position going to be filled?
Yeah, they posted it, RCD posted it. And, but I don't know where it's at this time. I don't know. It may have closed recently, or it may still be open. But it's kind of more of a inclusive position there. So ag ombudsman is just one of the roles that position plays at RCD.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking that it would be useful to have them on the committee or represented. The way we have, cooperative extension, RCD, it'd be good to have the ag ombudsman participating in a similar capacity. Perhaps participating more fully than the RCD and cooperative extension.
Or the NRCS,
NRCS, yeah.
Yeah.
So Summer, are you familiar with how the committee gets modified to be able to add a position in that way?
I was about to say that probably means a bylaws change, which
Yes,
yeah,
the
what's
bylaws would
process for that?
change, and actually it's not as cumbersome as it might sound. It needs to go through any changes, revisions to the bylaws, which we were planning to make some others anyways, just to better align with how the Ag Advisory Committee actually operates versus what is written in black and white in the bylaws. I think that it would, so it requires that the revisions go to the AAC at 2 separate meetings for review and then adoption. I would imagine, I've chatted with legal counsel, the county attorney's office on this in the recent past with some other changes that we're wanting to make, and that was the process. I imagine it would be the same for any modifications. I'll check back in with them, but we are reviewing the bylaws right now with the county attorney's office and hoping to have a first draft of some edits or revisions or amendments to the Ag Advisory Committee, hopefully at the February meeting. So it would be a good time to be able to incorporate this in as well to that, if that's the committee's desire. Which it sounds like it is. So
Definitely.
and so we'll factor that in, and it'll have to come to the Ag Advisory Committee for review, and if there's further modifications or changes from there, but we'll take a county staff can take a stab at those revisions and bring them forward to you.
So you don't need a motion from the committee at this time?
I don't know. I think we'll make some recommended changes based on just this feedback, and we'll bring it to the committee for a more formal review and further direction.
Yeah, and I don't know either because it's not on the agenda. Even allowed to make a motion.
That's
Right.
true. That's true.
Well, we're discussing it as items not on the agenda
Yeah.
to be on a future agenda.
Okay.
So we'll
Just that it will
conform
be forthcoming for an agenda, for a future agenda.
Great.
Okay, item 7, committee discussion on recommendations for topic speakers in fields of fire resiliency, water, wildlife management, and or other.
So if I may, this was just adding back on to our agenda recommendations for topic speakers and training sessions for the Ag Advisory Committee. So revisiting this, just wanting to start with the new year, collecting any recommendations that committee members may have for speakers to come, so that when agendas are light, we have some people lined up to be able to fill in and provide some training sessions at upcoming meetings. So I just wanted to, we've had this off of the agenda for a while because the agendas have been pretty full, but given they're kind of lightening up, wanted to just put this on the agenda tonight to have a brief discussion to see, if anybody has any recommendations on revisiting topics for training sessions that the committee may desire, or specific direction with regards to some of these more broad topics. These were the topics that were identified probably early last year, I would say, from the committee, but these desires may have changed over time. So just wanted some feedback and direction so that staff can help kind of try to line up some future speakers for this upcoming year. And I'll just say, that's kind of a big topic. So in terms of, recommendations for speakers or so forth, just feel free to email me as, you may think of somebody for a particular topic that might be of interest for us to reach out to and see if they are willing and able to come and speak. The topics that were previously, though, fire resiliency, water, wildlife management, are those, I guess, a first question would just be, are there any other training topics that the committee that aren't listed here that the committee may wish to pursue?
I didn't have, when this is Peter, when this went down, it wasn't as a training topic, but one of the things that we thought about to speak would be like maybe a water master from one of our coastside creeks.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful topic.
Yeah, I was just gonna say these three, at least the first two that are on here were like heavily requested in the past. So I think those are probably would be the top two priorities, even though it feels weird to say fire resiliency when we're dealing with like way too much water this week. But yeah, fire resiliency, especially that one was really heavily discussed post CZU fire and controlled burns and stuff like that. So that's definitely relevant. And then water continues to be one of the primary points of review, critical review as we review projects. So anything related, anything where we can arm this committee with more information about, water regulations, common uses, anything like that would really be helpful in making this committee more informed when we go and start reviewing projects and to better understand the water use around them. So I really liked Peter's suggestion of a water master, but that's one we could definitely probably have more than one speaker on because it's such a relevant topic to the projects we review.
But the RCD had the 500 ponds project a long time ago, and I don't know where that is. And that was just kind of a whimsical name, but it was the intention of creating water resources for agricultural operations, which historically has been really tough to do. I mean, the way regulations have been changing and attitudes within the regulatory community have made it so that it is easier than what it was, but it'd be interesting to hear what the state of the art is at this time.
Yeah, definitely the RCD is working at it, and they probably have some folks on staff that would be good resources for that topic. It also could be a way to take care of some of this water that's when we have too much, to get it all into ponds. So then we have it when we need it. It's easier said than done, but was there, I forget when this general topic, have we already had a training session with someone from the county that was more specifically related to like zoning and so forth? What was that one?
Exactly. We had a general one on like LCP, PAD, Williamson Act, all that kind of, all of the zoning relevant to the projects that we see. So I know that was close to a year ago. I think it was last spring, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so. And then more recently, farm labor housing. We had a discussion on farm labor housing. So I think that, I mean, we could recycle those, of course. It's good to refresh and, maybe when new members come on board, we can kind of, that would be a good time to kind of refresh everybody on the zoning aspects of it. I think, I want to say everybody on the committee currently maybe sat through those.
Yeah, I think it's when all the new committee members got sat.
Yeah, I thought we
that
kind of
first
try
session.
to, align that with that. So when we get these new committee members, we can certainly do a refresher on those.
Yeah, they're
zoning
not as
related.
exciting as fire resiliency and so forth, but it is maybe something that's easy for the county to provide and a good way to make sure members are up to speed.
Yeah.
Summer, if we have a topic or agenda item, when do we need to get that to you by to get on the agenda?
I would say it's usually, how many weeks? It's one.
The agenda has
Two
to
to-
be. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, ideally 2 to 3 weeks before the meeting.
Okay,
The agendas go out on, it's 2 Fridays before the meeting. So this agenda, although over the holidays, I apologize, this one was a little late due to the holidays, but it typically would, like, for the January 9th meeting, it was scheduled to go out on Friday the 30th. So it's just 2 Fridays before. So technically anytime before that,
Okay.
but ideally 2 to 3 weeks before would be great, just to have the coordination done on it. And particularly if we need to, line up any speakers, making sure we get commitments from them and so forth.
okay.
So yeah, I can definitely, this is some good feedback. I appreciate it. And I can start looking into this and maybe checking in with RCD and some within our own environmental health services that regulates wells, and go from there, and kind of at least trying to get the wheels working for some of these people to kind of have on their mind for us to fill in the
I
future.
appreciate that. I had one more thing to say, but Natalie raised her hand and I didn't, so I'll raise my hand after.
I found that button. Anyway, what about the water master? Because it seems like that's an incredible amount of knowledge that we would be, ashamed if we didn't tap into having the water master come to discuss, because they know, the buck stops here kind of thing. They know it all. Would that be somebody we can get here?
Yes, definitely. The water master as well. I have notes on that to check in as well. And hopefully we can entice these people to come and speak.
Cool.
But I've got that as well. Thanks.
When it comes to the water master, to have him come, I could ask him. I asked him once before, and he said he would be willing to do it. So, if it comes to that, if you want me to reach out to the one for the Fangor Creek, I could do so.
Okay, great for that. Thanks for that offer. And
Okay.
yeah, I can coordinate with you, Peter.
Okay, that'd be fine. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
My last question on this topic is on the wildlife management one. I know that was a topic that Bill Cook had recommended we do in some of the early discussions. But I just wanted to check and see if there was broader committee interest in that topic or not.
Yeah, I think so. For me, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because we could get the UC Human Wildlife Interactions Advisor to speak on that, but I think we'd want to clarify exactly what we want from her. Or was that more concerned with like game wardens, or what do you?
Yeah, what are we looking at for wildlife management?
Yeah,
I would like to know more about how it pertains to your crops and how you can protect them, that area. But what's everyone else thinking?
sorry, I couldn't hear that very well.
Sorry, I was just saying that I would like to know, to learn more about how you can protect your crops in terms of wildlife coming down and eating them and things like that, as it relates to your farm and your crops. And yeah, that would be something of interest, and it's something we can learn, and then of course pass along and help everyone else as they come up, that comes up in the committee meetings.
Okay.
Anybody else?
We have that resource here in the county, the UC advisor, and she's definitely willing to give us trainings. So I can talk to her and see if that's a possibility for a future meeting.
That'd be great.
Great, thanks. Okay, well, that is 3 potential future training topics. And seeing as we only got through one the past year, I think we're in good shape for
That
planning ahead.
should set us
But
up.
thank you, Summer. Yeah.
Thank you guys for the feedback.
Okay, should we do the community development director's report? Item number 8.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, I can do that. So no PAD permit applications were heard or considered by the Board of Supervisors. No PAD applications were received by the Planning Division during this past month of December. There were 3 rural CDX applications submitted, and those are included in an attachment to the director's report. And just the announcements is that the next Ag Advisory Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 13th. And we've included as an attachment to the director's report a copy of the Farm Worker Advisory Commission's first meeting report that went to the Board of Supervisors on December 6th, 2022. So it's the presentation from there, just to keep you guys all abreast of that. I know Chair Bars provided an update, I think, at the last meeting as well. And then we've already talked about the 3 vacancies on the commission, on the Ag Advisory Committee, sorry, that remain open. And so again, it's 2 farmer grower positions, 1 position representing agricultural business, and the application deadline, just to reconfirm, has been extended to Friday, February 3rd at 5 p.m. And we've included the recruitment notice as an attachment to the director's report. And a link is provided in the report for where to apply for any of those positions online. So please feel free to pass that recruitment out. And that concludes the director's report.
All right, great. Okay, here's our opportunity to get to the regular agenda. Item 9, committee review of AAC subcommittee meeting notes on agritourism guidelines. Topics to be focused on are the subcommittee meeting notes on educational activities, farm tours, and volunteer service events as provided in the accompanying document. I think the hope had been that we had gotten through the agritourism guidelines relating to events, and then but we haven't really had a chance to revisit these topics.
Great news. And I'm sorry I wasn't here last month to join the conversation. And thank you to Summer for jumping in and helping with the discussion notes in the meantime. Great to hear that we're on to like the last ones, which is educational activities, farm tours, and volunteer service events. A little bit of context I can provide is that these 3 were things that were regularly brought up in discussions of potential ag tourism events. But if I remember correctly, there was some debate on if these would fall under ag tourism or if these would fall under just kind of core agriculture activities for the farm. The farm tours was like one of the biggest points of contention is like, if you're just, if like you have a potential business partner and you're having a meeting and you're providing a farm tour for them and their team, that would fall under just core operational activity for your farm. But if you are similar to, what is it, the Fish and Flowers event, the nursery tour day event, that would like fall under an ag tourism event if you're having large groups of the public coming and touring through your facility. So that was some of the conversation around farm tours. In terms of educational events, it's, you know, if you're having a school class come out, a school bus of kids come out or something like that, or even adults. And I think some of the discussion there, if I remember correctly, was, you know, primarily impact to the farm. If you're having large groups of people coming to your farm in some way, it should be permitted in some way if it's beyond your normal farm activities, I think was the context there. And then with the volunteer service events, you know, it was, you know, almost like a traditional barn raising. Like if you're going to do a big weeding day and have all the members of your CSA come out and help, would that fall under an ag tourism event, or would that just fall under a CSA activity related to your core agricultural, you know, operations? So these were kind of unique ones that didn't necessarily fall in a different category and that we wanted to look more closely at. But I do remember there was some pushback about whether these should be, you know, even addressed under ag tourism or not, if they're not necessarily a tourist event where you are, you know, selling tickets for a group to come to your farm. So that's a bit of my rundown from what I remember. Natalie, you might remember more from the subcommittee.
Could I speak? This is Peter.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Last meeting when we talked about this, I brought up the point that the agritourism, and I brought this up in the last meeting. It was that when I was on the subcommittee over 10 years ago, when we met at Redwood City, and with Tim Fox, agritourism guidelines came about of having basically the, I'll put it this way, the entertainment that's not related to ag, that, and it says it right on the packet, that enhances ag, or whatever the word is. And it's basically the bouncy house, the pony ride, anything else that you don't have, like large groups coming out to tour your farm, that you don't have that, I'll call it entertainment. It doesn't fall under agritourism. It's done by right. And it's just like the barn raising. This is like when they did a post property where Blue House is now, they did a barn raising, and that was all done by right. And the same as Down Farms, that was all done by right. And the agritourism is just when you're having the pony rides, the hay rides, and all the other stuff, along with your agritourism. But if you have farm tours and touring your farm, equipment demonstration when a salesman brings a plow and other, or whatever it may be, and other farms get together to see, it's all done by right. So anyways, hope that helps.
Definitely. Thanks for that context, Peter.
To speak. So I guess the question would be, and I didn't want to just before making this point say that even though I kind of presented it as like, oh, we had the event thing all worked out, I think we're still hoping, and maybe if Lauren, I'd be happy to meet up with you or talk to you on the phone offline to kind of hone in like what we had actually gotten to, because I feel like last meeting nobody could really find their notes, but I felt like we had 2 meetings ago maybe really came up with a few different scenarios around like, oh, can we do 90 days? Can we have 10 non-consecutive 9-day events and that kind of thing? So we do need to do a little bit of work there to get something that we can actually present to the county. So I didn't want to misrepresent that. And then I guess the question that Peter's raising here is it necessary for us to even include these things? And I guess I would raise the question is, can we as a group come up with a scenario where we would like, I don't know, to ramp up farm tours so that it's actually a money-making event and we're doing it all the time? And is it could it possibly raise to a level where the county would want us to have permits? And is there a point at which, you know, we could imagine that we would benefit from having that like sanctioned permission? Because I really hear Peter on this, like maybe we don't need to incorporate this into the guidelines at all. And maybe Natalie has something to mention. I see her ready.
But just quickly before we jump to Natalie, let me just say happy to get together and hash out the notes and stuff. And you didn't have them because I am totally behind on my minutes and I didn't provide them, and that's completely on me. So happy to help catch up on that front. And then I think that's exactly the right question we need to be asking ourselves is it beneficial to expand the ag tourism guidelines to include stuff like this? Or would it be detrimental because it's already provided as a right? So I think that's exactly the question we want to ask ourselves. Sorry to jump in now.
That's okay. So it would absolutely be detrimental, in my opinion. I think we need to look at benefit, and we need to ask ourselves, what's the benefit to agriculture to be doing that? And there's none. So there's none. It doesn't help any farm or farmer. As a matter of fact, it just puts another building block on this wall that we are building to remove agriculture on the coast side. And I know we're not consciously doing it. As a member of the AAC, we are preserving agriculture. That's what we do. But if we put all these things that can be looked at and this and that, and oh my God, then you know what? We're just going to find ourselves in a place of more restriction. And when you look at it by definition, if you look at volunteer day, like Lauren mentioned, that as you know, one of the things of volunteer, you know, they come out and they, you know, kind of like a barn raising, but people come out and help you with something. You know, that clearly goes to the crop. And if you look at, you know, educating children, that clearly goes to ag education. So when you are looking at the true definition of ag tourism, it's what's in addition to the crop. And I know we already covered that a long time ago. I'm so glad we got that down, but it's so important to stay along those lines. Anyway, so that's my story. Thank you.
I don't remember who had their hand up for Summer or
I think
Fred.
Summer and then Fred.
I was just going to say, well, first, the attachment or the document that you have for tonight's meeting, I threw that together. So if we don't need to discuss it,
that's exactly what I would have pulled.
That's why you have it in your packet.
Thank you for doing that.
So yeah, if this is if you guys don't want to provide, discussion or comments on this in the comments that you send back to the county, that's perfectly fine. But I would just mention, and I don't know, I wasn't part of the original agritourism guideline, the creation of them, but there is a comment or a line item under the guidelines now that speaks to other recreational educational activities subject to review and approval of the community development director. So I don't know if that, if the committee, I guess, has any comments or concerns or feels the need to kind of differentiate. I do agree, with both Lauren and Peter in terms of their characterization of, what's kind of just agriculture related versus maybe not, in terms of educational activities and tours and so forth. But I don't know if that particular, standard in the guidelines is something that the committee may want to discuss and provide some feedback to the county on, or if it's just fine the way it is. I don't really know what that was, intending to.
Great call out. And these items do absolutely fall under that line item that you mentioned, which is other recreational educational activities subject to review approval of the community development director. So previous discussion was around these items for today's discussion was whether we needed to further define these under that line item, or if that line item by itself
it's just
covers it and
okay.
kind of stands.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
Could I speak?
And then Fred has his hand up.
Let's
Yeah.
let Fred go ahead and talk, Peter, and then
Okay,
we'll
thanks.
get right back to you.
Right.
So I apologize for this confusion here, but does this only apply to agricultural operations, or does it apply to any property that's in the PAD? If somebody has 100 acres, they're not farming it, they want to provide retreats for Facebook on a monthly basis or every other month, have them come out and spend 2 or 3 days out there as an educational retreat or tour or whatever, even though they're not a farming operation, would that fall under agricultural guidelines, or would that fall under some other
I
permitting?
think that would fall under PAD, because the ag tourism guidelines specifically say that the ag tourism permit is to be secondary to prime agricultural activity.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would agree that, Fred, what you're describing would not be, we wouldn't get into the agritourism guidelines for that. That would just be our normal zoning LCP policies and regulations for PAD property.
But really good
Event
question, because I could totally see someone trying to take advantage of this and take a non-agricultural property or property not being used for ag and commercialize it in some way.
Yeah, I know there are some out there that are doing that. I don't know if planning is aware of it or not, but I just wanted to clarify that that is not a part of what we're talking about here. Thank you.
John, my turn.
Yeah, Peter.
Hello. Okay, 2 quick comments. Back to echo on what Summer said, number H there. I says that was put in place when we did that years ago, because we talked about a lot of other things like a gondola, a zip line, different things. And we felt rather than trying to list everything, we'll put that in for something that we didn't think about that someone might want to do, that would be subject to review to pass upon the committee. And so that way it was left broad like that, for the fact that if we didn't think about something that somebody else comes up with after. The other thing too is we also talked about, like what Fred was saying, different things going on that's not agritourism. And Tim Fox says they do have an event permit that you could get that's totally not related to ag at all, and it's a total separate category. So just when I remember that was brought up as well, but it had nothing to do with agritourism or not. And Tim Fox said there is an event permit, so somebody could come out to do something on their property that has nothing to do with ag at all, or agritourism that's separate. Anyways, just wanted to share that as well.
Thank you, Peter.
That's helpful. Thank you.
And to that end, we might just want to keep it that way instead of further defining 3 additional potential activities. We may just want to keep it that broad, flexible statement to allow future folks to, if they have a unique idea that isn't specifically covered in the ag tourism guidelines, they still have that flexibility under that line to make a proposal.
I like that. In my opinion, I think if we talk more about is the days, the non-consecutive days, or broaden the consecutive days is more, I think,
be more impactful and helpful.
Yeah, yes, and the other stuff is pretty well put out there. So
Yeah, it feels like we're sort of in agreement with the not identifying too specifically things like educational events versus farm tours versus the volunteer stuff, and leave that in something that's an extension of the ag business and by rights for the property owner. So.
Great, then we may have a shorter discussion tonight than we planned. The one thing I will just touch on from our original notes, which are in the, page 29 of our packet, is that there was, so just for us to make sure we fully address all past input to this conversation, the notes say there was interest in adding further definition to what constitutes a recreational/educational activity in the existing guidelines, particularly regarding educational activities. We discussed that educational events should be regarding the environment, agriculture, nature, or food, And things that we discussed in relation to that was what types of educational activities would be included, open houses versus farm tours, that the educational activities be about the farm or ranch and the prime agricultural activity. But we didn't want to over limit things, kind of like what we're saying right now. No age range, open to everyone, peer-to-peer activities. So we discussed limiting it to 12 annually or having no limit on frequency. And we discussed limiting number of attendees or limiting number of events. So we had some broad discussions about further defining what these recreational educational activities are. But didn't really come to any conclusion. So the conclusion might just be to keep it nice and broad and flexible for future folks to interpret it how it makes sense for their business.
I like that because if we kind of try to tidy it up, we might be hurting ourselves without even realizing it down the line.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it seems like we were reminded that if we try and get too specific, it really just clogs up the whole permit process and makes it a lot too confusing and almost incapable of being administered. So that's another reason to back off on specificity.
And the other thing too, I know I've mentioned many times, but whatever we do present, when we do present it, it would be very important that we state in there any of these changes or that we suggest is not to take away anything that we already have, because by not stating that, they might think we're restructuring it and then some things got taken away or lessened without us realizing it, and them not wanting to do that and without thinking. But by putting that in, or remind them we don't want to take away what we got.
Great. So I'm generally hearing consensus that we kind of don't want to further define educational activities, farm tours, and volunteer service events, and that the existing language in the ag tourism kind of covers flexibility for these types of more unique events.
Yeah, I wonder, I guess, so the line that we're referring to is this other recreational / educational activities subject to review and approval of the, so is this implying that I want to have a farm tour with my CSA members? I need to get that approved by the community development director, or should I, as a grower, no, this is just a farm tour, it's my right to do it? I mean, it's true that we've done things like that and we didn't think to ask for permission. But my only thought would be, are there growers in the position of avoiding inviting people onto their farm because they think that they need to do something special to do it? And is there any way there could be something added to the guidelines that made that more clear? Because it's very clear to Peter and it's very clear to Natalie what they're allowed to do, but I'm just curious, is it possible that there be someone in a position where they're like, oh, I'd really love to do farm tours, but I don't know who I have to ask permission of?
Yeah, I think it originally in the conversation, we were thinking of these in context of the economic impact. So, and in the ag tourism definition, it says, activities that add to the economic viability of the agricultural operation. So I think the context was not necessarily tours for people currently connected to your farm, like through a CSA membership that they're already paying for, but that if it was a ticketed event that you're charging money for, I think that's when in the past conversations, I think we discussed that would be perhaps the triggering thing. Like if you are hosting it to the public and charging tickets and need to make sure that there's adequate parking and bathrooms and things like that for, so I think it's more unique events like that and not necessarily inviting your CSA members as an example, but I'm not the authority. That was just what I remembered from past conversations.
It sounds like what John is saying, though, is if that is the case, which I would agree with you, Lauren, then we should specifically state that a permit or a something is not
Yeah.
required unless it's a ticketed event, unless it's, so is that what you mean, John? Is to be more specific about what, when it isn't required?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very hesitant to to propose any new specificity because of what we've been discussing and how we don't want to inadvertently create a restriction on someone's future
Right.
activities.
Right.
But I do, yeah, I'm just wondering if
Well, I think,
like we've gone ahead and like, oh yeah, we've invited everyone out, we charged them for lunch. We didn't make it open to the full public, but maybe we did pass out flyers at the farmers market. You know what I mean? And we didn't think like, oh, we need to ask the county for permission to do this. But you know, had 500 people showed up instead of 100, you know, we might have found like, oh God, we should have had porta potties, and now it's a problem. And it might have been good that the county was involved so that we avoided creating an unhealthy situation for these 500 people that showed up. And you know, again, I don't want us to add anything that prevents people from doing what they want to do. But I'm just wondering if that could be a place where a change might make sense, is to clarify, you know, small educational things, like you don't have to ask anyone's permission for this stuff, but if it is something where you're ticketing and you're going to have a large number of people. Yeah. Natalie?
okay, so what I want to point out though, I see what you're saying, but when people are given the agritourism application, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, that they are also given the San Mateo County agritourism guidelines. And so the guidelines are very, very specific. And so once you read it, I mean, it says, you know, one food vendor, one prepackaged food snack bar, non-farm soils. It says everything. It says the square footage that you're allotted to have that on. I mean, it's very, very specific, and it very clearly says that it has to be in addition to the farm itself, you know, to the crop. So it's, you know, an accessory to it. It supports it. So when you get down to the part to add, is there anything else that you want to add from a farmer's point of view? You know, I know you have this point of view too, but I'm just saying, you know, you look at it and you just say, well, you know, okay, you know, maybe I should ask about this, or maybe I should ask about that. I think that it makes it pretty clear what you know, that what you need to ask about that is an accessory to the ag tourism, you know? And then the other things that aren't accessory to ag tourism that fall under events, like that are PAD events, that, you know, that you have to get a whole different permit for, that's an event permit, that's a separate deal. And I think that if you put it there and it does fall into a different category, then the county's going to tell you, you know, or at the AAC committee, we're going to tell you. I think that's why it's there, because then we're not inadvertently restricting something, because I really truly see that as being a huge issue as happening. But what we're doing is we're saying, okay, look, read through this. Once you read through it, you know what to add on there or not. It's so specific and clear. I just pulled it up right now as we were talking. It just couldn't be, in my opinion, it's just so clear. So that's my opinion.
To add to what you just said, Natalie, and I just started scanning through the ag tourism guidelines again, and not just our extracted notes from past conversations. And there is the commercial section E, other non-agricultural commercial events. And I really like the line at the top of this section that says, commercial events on PAD lands require review by the AAC to determine whether they constitute an ag tourism event.
Yeah.
So that line may cover what we're talking about. And that if it's a commercial event, like an event that you are ticketing or specifically trying to make additional money off of, it needs to come up for review for those more unique situations.
Right. And I think that's where the onus is on the person who is applying to put that into that area. You know, but I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but I would want to ask Summer, does the county still give, because mine's been, you know, repetitive, and on the committee, I'm just not clear about this. Does the county still give the ag tourism guidelines, the copy of that to each applicant? Because last year, me and 2 other applicants were actually put onto the AAC agenda when we hadn't even applied. And I don't think the other 2 were, you know, new either, but had they been, they wouldn't have gotten this. So is that something that they typically get like they used to, the guidelines when they get the application?
Yeah, the application and guidelines are posted together. So you have to go to the same location to get either or document. All of our, we are all digital or now, so, and we have been for a few years. So we only direct people online to that location to pull both of those documents.
Okay, yeah, so then I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and it, you know, and yeah, that's my opinion, I really do.
To that, I think you're right that the existing wording may cover what we're talking about, but to John's other point, that potentially there are farmers and ranchers out there who don't know that they have the opportunity to have events like that without a permit. Perhaps when we finish updating these guidelines and we have an updated one, we should consider some sort of rollout strategy to update to ensure that farmers know about the updates and increased ability. So maybe that we can address that through some sort of, you know, educational campaign when we have updated guidelines.
That's a great idea, and doing it separately afterwards, so there's no confusion of the 2. That's an excellent idea, I think.
Yeah, with our new ombudsman, we can task them.
Be a nice softball of like, hey, we just got you some new ways to try to commercialize your farm.
Okay, great. Well, we still have Summer, your hand is up, and Natalie's hand is up, but I'm not sure if that's
from the
residual. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just wonder, not to beat a dead horse here, but if on the other recreational educational activities subject to review and approval of the community development director, does the committee have any thoughts? Should that be broadened? I mean, it just seems like recreational educational activities, like I specifically, like it kind of, to John's point, like it kind of, if, you know, if I wasn't familiar with these regulations, I might read through it and think other recreational educational, well, what ones do require a permit versus the other that might not, subject to review? And I just wonder, should that be broadened to just be other activities subject to review and approval, and not specifically calling out recreational educational activities? If there's a concern that perhaps there are farmers that want to do just, you know, what's been characterized here tonight, that is just normal part of farm ag operation, and they don't need any permits, but they read through this and think, oh, you know, recreational educational activities might be subject to it, I better check. Or maybe I just don't do it. I don't know. I just, I can see, I understand Peter's description and context as to having a kind of a catch-all that, you know, you can't think of everything to include here. So you add that that catch-all in, which this is. I guess I'm still not quite sure if it's clear why it was specified to recreation education activities. I mean, I don't consider a train and, you know, a train ride to be either of those. Well, I guess recreation. I don't know. There's no other educational activities listed in what's allowed as an agritourism event, but I don't know, maybe it's a non-issue.
No, I think
I just don't know, maybe if that's too specific, and maybe it should just be other activities not mentioned here, whatever that might be.
You know, in our feedback, we're not necessarily going to be line editing the current ag tourism. We're going to be giving general suggestions on what changes are needed. So we can add a note in our recommendations that that's clarified without necessarily like line editing it. But if we want to dig into that, I was just, because I'm a technical writer and I'm sitting here playing around with the wording. What if we did something along like other types of ag tourism activities not defined above are subject to review and approval of the community development director? So that broadens it in a way and specifies that it's anything not listed here. You know, it doesn't mean it's not possible. It just needs to be reviewed as a kind of one-off or unique event.
Hmm.
Could you read that again, Lauren, to me, please? I was listening.
Yeah,
but
certainly. And
visually.
I'm so wordy, so I threw it out there with a bunch of other things. So instead of it reading other recreational, like educational activities subject to review and approval of the community development director, we could consider something like other types of agritourism activities not detailed above are subject to review and approval of the community development director.
So
The
basically,
more-
you're
what-
So instead of saying
What-
other recreational educational activities, we just say other ag tourism activities.
that's what I thought. So you're just taking out those two words that say educational and, yeah. Okay.
From a
where-
process perspective, that this may help us tonight. I have to catch up on all of the minutes this week, and I've got a big writing project coming up, so I absolutely need to get those done this week. And then I also need to draft our recommendations based on all of our notes. So I can take a first pass this month at putting our recommendations in writing, and then we can review it and finalize it at the February meeting. So we don't get stuck in the like wording right now. We could then be working from recommendations and make tweaks there.
That's a good idea. I have a question, Lauren, or anyone who, Summer or Lauren, who might know, or John. Okay, what I'm looking at online is the 2020 version of the app, which I believe is still the one we use. And I don't see that where it says that. And I certainly know that I've seen it before. Did we make a new one since 2020, or are you just rewording it differently? Like, which one is that on the application? It's under project information, right?
The wording, I
Yeah.
think we're looking at the actual guidelines and not necessarily the application. So that might be where the
Okay, so
confusion is.
yeah, well, I was at the
Mhm.
guidelines before. When you, the part in the app where it says any, to add any other activities, is that, are you taking, or are you reading that off the guidelines or off the application? Sorry.
I don't, on the application, Natalie, I'm not seeing that, what you're referencing. Hang on, please.
Okay, so the part, is it, where are we reading that about additional,
It's in the guidelines.
it's in the, where is it in the guidelines? Is it,
It's in a few sections, but it's usually the last item of the list. So, or most of them. So if you're looking at page 3, that list A, B, C, D through M, it's L, other recreational activities. And then you see it again
okay,
at the bottom of section 3. It's like, it's at the bottom of a lot of lists as like a kind of
Okay.
catch-all.
okay, I see. Okay, I gotcha. Okay, and then and then the application, just to go to John's, what John was talking about the grower and knowing, what's out there. Then if you look at the app, and we talked about a place where they can, that's something that's not listed, but they can write it down. They would write it down under please describe all elements and activities associated with your agritourism activities. Is that correct? On the left-hand side of the app under project information.
Are we looking at a copy of the application or we are looking at the guidelines tonight?
Well,
We're
I'm
looking at the guidelines, but she has a copy of the application pulled up. And
Well,
that's,
yeah, I have the guidelines and the app pulled up, and so they just explained to me where it is on the guidelines, which, by the way, thank you for that. So I'm just going back now, having read that as a grower, and now I'm gonna go to the application. Where would I write that in the application? I would write under.
different problem.
I think that's something that the planning department would work out after we make a recommendation on the guidelines, that they would modify the application based
Right,
on.
but
the
but
recommendation.
it's not talking about that. I'm talking about, I'm talking about currently, because without it being modified. So I just want to know, I mean, it seems that's where it would be, just to go to John's point about, how does the grower know? And then, we talked about, okay, well, if they get a copy of the guidelines, and then where would they put it? And I'm guessing we would put it there under all elements and activities, right?
That's, and Natalie, yes, that's correct. On the
Yeah.
current application, they would
Okay.
list all of their activities and then
Okay.
staff would review and,
Okay.
if what they're describing actually isn't agritourism, we could just let them know at that point.
That's
Or upon further review, by the community development director. But yes, also to Fred's point, once we update the guidelines, we'll also need to, correspondingly update the application as well. And we'll do that.
If you don't make a change in this regard, at least that's already there. It seems to make
Yeah,
sense.
great point.
So yeah, if that's the case, I just want to double check. So thank you.
Yeah, and I wasn't even thinking about that, about the actual application form, but good call out, both Natalie and Fred, that will also need to be updated once we get these changes implemented.
I was going to say that may be something that we additionally review once we get the recommendation changes to the guidelines.
Good point.
Yeah, but this one, just for giggles, just to say, when you read it on the app, it doesn't in fact correspond with that part of the guide. Like if I read those guidelines, I would in fact know to write it there. And that's kind of why I was double checking. So I think that it does stand, as it is. But that's my, I think my opinion on that.
Well, for as long as we've been working on getting the guidelines modified, how adding the application to it might prolong our effort.
Yeah, let's get our recommendations submitted first, and then when we have something, adjusted back from the county, we can cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, and maybe we won't have to, because you guys answered my question, Lauren, and in summer it seems to work that way, in my opinion, the way it is.
Yeah, and just on the application to wrap up that topic, I think that the preference I would recommend is that staff would, because staff will, has some additional information that we would need to collect on the application just for our own processing purposes, that we'd probably suggest us taking a stab at that to align with the guidelines, and then just bringing a draft of that to the committee to weigh in on and provide further comment and suggested edits. So we'd probably try to take a first stab at that and bring that to you, so we make sure we get the stuff that we need on it, and then can also get any additional items the committee may want to comment on.
Great, thanks.
Sounds good. All right.
So just to conclude what I said before, I will take all of our recommendations and do my best to write them up into something, and I'll make sure that that's included in the agenda in February, so you guys can review and tweak that as needed before we send it to the county.
Thank you for that.
Great.
Your work is so amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. And
pleasure.
because I know you're trying to transition away from this position, if I can help you at all with that, just
I'll
let me know.
probably want your,
You can
since I
send me
missed
an email.
I appreciate that. Since I missed the December meeting, I'll take what I have and would appreciate your eyes on it to make sure I didn't miss anything critical from December.
Yeah. Mainly in December, we were just talking about, why are we still talking about this?
Well, I brought it up. Yeah, it's like, not necessarily why are we still talking about this? Why are we talking about this?
Right.
and what
first
were the
place.
origins of it. I mean, there's a whole subcommittee and everything, but
Yeah,
it's always on the agenda, but we never seem to get around to it. So my question was, what was the impetus behind this and how are we going to resolve it?
yeah. It was from, I don't want to rehash this because also I think we might be able to get out with a couple of minutes extra this week, but my memory was, it was actually at the request of farmers to review it, to open up additional opportunities for economic viability. It's just, then there's been COVID and CZU fire and atmospheric rivers and all sorts of turnover on the committee, all sorts of things since then. So, but we've carried the torch forward. We're going to finish this 3 years later.
I think didn't Audrey start out by saying, I mean, a lot of the items on the list got there because people had asked her. They wanted to do those things and they didn't know whether they
Yeah.
needed to or not. So
Exactly. So it'll be nice to come full circle and expand it a little bit and give folks more flexibility on the ag tourism permit.
Well, thank you, Lauren. I look forward to reviewing it in February, for February.
Great. And then Fred, and we can do this offline, but I don't know if once our power is restored and we're on the other side of this, maybe we can get lunch or coffee and talk shop on secretary stuff.
Excellent. I'll buy.
Awesome. You get lunch, I'll get coffee.
I'll give you a call.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. It seems like we made it through the agenda. And
Good.
I will adjourn the meeting.
All right, thanks, John. Okay.
Excellent.
All right, bye.
you.
Thank you, John.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Okay, stay
Happy
safe,
New Year,
everybody.
Stay
everybody.
dry,
Stay
stay
safe.
safe.
Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.